Hello everyone and welcome to Formula EuroLeague Tier 1 Round 8 of Season 7 here in Japan for the Japanese Grand Prix. The Suzuka circuit, a fan favourite I think it's fair to say. It doesn't always produce the best racing, however it is a lot of fun to drive on. I'll be your commentator today, Jackson, and alongside me is the one and only Alex Bomberg. Hello Alex.
Hello Jackson, good morning, good day, good evening to everyone in attendance. Thank you for joining us here at Japan. Can't wait for the race tonight, Jackson. It's going to be great. Legendary circuit, classic circuit, it's always a driver's favourite. Sector 1 is absolutely enthralling to go through in a modern F1 car. I can't wait to see how this qualifying session is going to play out.
Neither can I. It should be, it's going to be an important qualifying session. Because of how hard it is to overtake here. But of course, it's difficult but not impossible, so if you do have bad qualifying, that is not your day over. Which is one of the things I like about this track, is that whilst it is difficult to overtake, a driver can really shine around here and can put on a show for us commentators if they are able to make a few overtakes here and there.
For those just wondering, Jackson, I would actually urge you to get off your phone and check Instagram quickly. McLaren's livery they've just revealed for the Monaco Grand Prix.
Holy moly.
Oh my god. Like, let's just have a moment of appreciation. A Gulf livery tied in with McLaren and wowee. Just wowee, Jackson.
Well, that is impressive. That is quite the car. I mean, let's just hope it stays out of the way of Mazepin. That is a nice looking livery. Nice throwback to the good old Golf cars. And wow, I'm lost for words. That is a good looking car. So, sorry for those, I feel bad for the drivers out on track who can't see this. They're thinking, oh, I hope some of them are listening to the stream, so are hearing about this but can't see it. Oh, that is a nice livery.
That is unbelievable, I have to say. But wow. Let's steer back to.
Do we have? I'd quite happily look at this all day.
I would happily look over this over the next sort of hour and a half. But back to qualifying here at Japan, we do have a job to do, and well, who's on a lap? Let's catch up. Track map enabled. Let's get some lap data, get the telemetry up. Here we go. We're in full flow. Round 8, Japan. It's qualifying. Let's see who's got the ultimate pace here.
It's going to be an interesting qualifying session today. Lots of competitive drivers in the field. CRG Benjamin, of course, racing this week. So could he potentially ruin Midnight's? Well, I was going to say ruin Midnight's fun, but I think that ended during the race in Canada. As I believe a bit of slipstreaming going on there between the AlphaTauri teammates of Lars Kramer and the Midnight. Speaking of Benjamin, he goes fastest at the moment with a 1:25.5. That is quite a nice lap there as Midnight invalidates going through the final chicane there. So Midnight and he pulls into the pits. That's a good choice there from Midnight to pit. That's a good thing about invalidate. Good thing about this track is you can't invalidate after the pit entry like you can at some tracks. So Canada springs to mind. But still, that is a good bank, a very strong bank lap from Benjamin. Not quite Midnight level from last week, when Midnight, quite frankly, put on a show for us in the qualifying session. But still, a good start to the session for Benjamin, who is 5 tenths clear at the top of the table. But only 5 drivers sitting a lap so far. Surprised by the amount of okay, that's now 6. Surprised by the amount of invalidations so far, because this is usually a. It is possible, very much possible to invalidate around here, but not as bad as some tracks. Like I'm trying to think of one like in Canada, for example. As I mentioned earlier, Canada, Bahrain's quite easy to invalidate on. Monaco relatively easy, but you know, only 8 drivers taking laps so far. I must admit, I'm kind of surprised by that. But just makes their life harder. But still, it will. It's not impossible to come back from. And however, it is, of course, especially for drivers like Midnight, who are going to be in that tight battle up front with drivers like Benjamin. But it's important to get as many laps in as you can. But the one good thing about Midnight's lap is he invalidated the final chicane, so that the whole of that lap is representative, and he would have learned stuff from doing that lap. and only validating at the end means compared to Benjamin, pretty much the only thing that Midnight has lost there in terms of knowledge is the lap time itself, because it is still he got most of the lap in, would have seen his sector times, and would have had a good idea of how good that lap was, where he can push more, where he has to push a bit less, for the chicane, for example. But yeah, it's a good start for Benjamin at the top of the session, but only 2 tenths ahead now of a new VRT driver in the form of VRT George. So he recently joined VRT and will be looking to impress them in on his first league races with them as his esports team. Speaking of VRT Young Power sitting third at the moment, currently being blocked in the pit lane by his teammate. But at the moment, a solid first lap. Again, it's got a very good close 3-car battle for P2 at the moment. But after those sort of first runs, Alex, what has surprised you?
Well, it's a great question, Jackson. What has surprised me? I think quite a few invalidations. That final chicane throwing up an interesting sort of dynamic, where we've seen a couple of drivers struggle in terms of the track limits. Another place you tend to see drivers struggle with track limits would be, I'm not entirely sure of the name of the corner, but the fast right-hander, which then goes into that sort of 4th gear right-hander just before the hairpin. Do you know what I'm on about, just before you come under the bridge, Jackson? The Degner. Is that Degner 1 and 2? I thought Degner was before that.
Which right-hander are you talking about? I'm confused here.
If we were going to go on
board...
Go
on board with Midnight, and let's... Tell me when we get there.
We're just coming up to it, actually.
Is it these 2 corners here? This is Degner 1 here, and this is Degner 2 here.
Well, welcome to Track Guides with Alex Blomberg and Jackson Turner.
Oh...
We have found... yeah, we have found Degner 1 and 2, and I'd say Midnight looked extremely tidy through this part of the lap so far. Only 9 drivers have set a lap so far. I'd argue that a fair few of them aren't actually representative. There's quite a bit of time in a lot of them laps, but Midnight currently setting the pace through the first sector and the middle sector. He looks quick at the moment, Jackson.
Yeah, he's that's what we come to expect at this stage. But Midnight there, 109.3 after the middle sector. I should probably get TAS up, really, shouldn't I? We have it. I should probably be using it, and then I can compare sectors for you. But Midnight coming around the final, a little bit of a slide there, but he keeps the tight line. And Midnight goes P1 by just over a tenth a second. However, Benjamin has now just only started his second run, so let's go on board with Benjamin here and watch him go through the S section. Alex, would you like to talk us through Benjamin's lap?
We've missed the best part of it, but you know we'll live. Nicely runs over that curb on the exit there. We're heading up to the Degners now. First of the Degners, chuck it into the first one, 7th gear, down to 4th, 5th on the exit for traction. Nice traction for Benjamin there, runs it up to that white line on the exit, breaking a straight line for the hairpin. A lot of the drivers tend to avoid that apex there in order to open up the radius a little bit more to give them a straighter exit out of the hairpin. Benjamin chose not to do so. Flat out here, right-hander, not a corner in these F1 cars, into spoon curve, takes the first apex on the left, opens it up, second apex on the left again now, runs it right to the track limit line, arguably a little bit too far there, lost traction as he applied the power all the way down now. The long run feels quite short in an F1 car. Purple in sector 2, 130R, barely a corner. It's all about getting it nice and straight lined up for the final chicane, the triangle chicane, right, left, and back on the power for what is a right-hander. Barely a corner as well in these F1 colours. Take the short run to the line, and that is provisional pole for Benjamin at 25.3. Looked extremely tidy there from the reigning champion.
Yeah, he found his time in the middle sector there, where I believe he went about over a tenth quicker than anyone else has in that middle sector. So, great middle set there from Benjamin. Whilst you're talking through that lap, Kyle, I think, went briefly up to the top. However, has now dropped down second, of course, after that Benjamin lap. Currently, sectors. Fast in sector 1 is Kai, so that would demonstrate a good a setup that's got a good change of direction in it. Quite easily flicking between the S section's curves. Fast in Sector 2 was Benjamin, which to me would suggest a car that's good through long corners, for example the Spoon, and perhaps even a bit and through corners like the Degners, where you've got a sort of multiple corners going in the same direction. Also perhaps good traction at the hairpin was important in that sector as well. Fast in the final sector is Hercules at the moment. Now that's mostly flat out, but of course it does have that good slow speed rotation that you need for the chicane. So Hercules clearly has that in his setup at the moment. But those are your 3 different fast sectors at the moment, 3 different drivers, which is something we've become accustomed to seeing so far this season. 14 drivers now have a lap on the board, so only 4 drivers yet to lap, and they are Cometa Lucas, Cool Hands Carter, BRT Luke, and Ryan55X. As I believe some of these guys will be starting their laps now, as Ryan has just started his lap, so let's watch the Red Bull driver through the first part of this lap through into terminal. That's a bit. That looked to me like he went in a bit wide there. Maybe that was just the angle of the camera, but to me that appeared like he was a bit wide. But go through the S section now. Looks quite tight. It looks solid through there. Missed his apex slightly, a bit of a wobble. It's not the best, but so far it's been fairly clean. About a tenth. Wait, let me find his sector there. As far as sector 1 at the moment is a 30.8, and Ryan did a 31.0, so he's about 2 tenths off in that first sector alone. However, in a field this tight, it's going to hurt him a lot, but it should still put it, if he can now nail the rest of the lap, and he's only 2 tenths off pole, that'd still put him in a good position. However, perhaps that if he 2 tenths off in every sector and ends up 6 tenths off across the lap, then that would put him around about, and he's invalidated it, so it's all null and void. So Ryan not able to lap, so he's clearly struggling at the moment with this, as Cometa Lucas has also invalidated their lap. Cool Hands Carter starts his lap now, so let's see what he can do. Down from 17th place into turn 1. The speeds they take into turn 1 is just, from an off-board camera, is just unbelievable. As I'll make our way into the S section, looks a bit cleaner than that of Ryan, but still doesn't look quite perfect. But I must say, very solid first sector there for Cool Hands Carter. What will the time be though? And it is less than a tenth off the quickest at the moment, so that was a very nice sector 1 there from Cool Hands Carter. Let's see what they're like through this second sector on the brakes into the hairpin. They get to the apex nicely. Can they get the paddle? A bit of a slide. But relatively clean as they come through the second sector now, holding it to the right hand side of the track. Now trying to line the car up for Spoon Curve. Gets into the first apex nicely, runs and he's invalidated. And that is Cool Hands Carter now with an invalid lap time. So becoming the theme of this session so far. But yeah, that is Cool Hands Carter with his invalidated lap. It would strike me at the moment that perhaps these drivers are pushing too hard, or I mean, Alex, what would you say is causing a lot of these invalidations?
As I say, it's simply put down to pushing too hard in some points. Just seeing, following Lars Kramer on his lap at the moment. You mentioned earlier, Jackson, that the speeds they take through turn 1. In these cars, turn 1's barely a corner. When you're at turn 1, you're looking at turn 2 already, and you're already thinking about after that corner. So turn 1's there, but it's not really prevalent in the driver's mind, because it's all about setting up turn 2. And I think a lot of the drivers, and probably yourself, Jackson, as well, will agree with me when I'm saying that. But Lars up in 6th at the moment. I think he's invalidated on his lap because he's certainly not pushing, or he's on an out lap, but it's not showing up as an out lap for me, so unless I've got a glitch there. But
who are you looking at there? Lars. It's, yeah, again, for me it's not showing up as an out lap. Maybe he's pitting, yeah. Perhaps he went out thinking he could do another lap and didn't have the time, so just thought he'd focus on getting the car back to the pits. Because Kai was on a lap.
We've only got 3 minutes left.
Yeah, Kai was on a lap that was only going to go about half a tenth quick, so probably not get that position. But he decided to pull into the pits at the end of it to ensure that he was okay.
Just to keep you up to date with all the latest league racing news, George Nader, formerly George Nader, moved to VRT. I think you might have mentioned that a little bit earlier, Jackson. New VRT driver. Lars Kramer's been a bit in the wars in terms of the F1 community over the last week. I'd love to spill the tea all the drama, but if I'm honest, I don't know. So I see stuff on Twitter and read it and move on. But Lars has been a point of discussion over the last sort of week or two. I believe it was in some drama with Dylan, was it? I'm not sure, but he's gonna hope to prove the doubters wrong today, and I have to say 7th in what is quite a strong grid and extremely tight grid at the moment. He's not doing a bad job.
Yeah, at the moment, a solid lap as I'm just looking further down the order here. Joey is currently on a lap down in 14th position at the moment. How was this Sector 1 for the Williams driver? Bad. Better than his previous best. He invalidated anyway. But, I mean, that was 3 attempts off the fastest, which was still an improvement for him, but if he was looking for a top sort of 5 position, that was not the Sector 1 he was going to want. But now I believe he's just going to back off and get one more lap in at the end of the session. Top 4 now out on outlaps, which will going to be interesting. Who is going to be the last on track to get, in theory, the best grip conditions? As Hercules is actually retired, so he must not have had the fuel for another run. So that is a shame for Hercules, as a fast Sector 1 has been put in by the Renault of Young Power. VRT Young Power, fastest in Sector 1. The new fastest in Sector 1, nearly 2 tenths up on the previous best. So let's go and watch his lap here. Let's go on board with Young Power as he makes his way through the long right-hander. How is he doing? He's gonna get big traffic. He's been blocked by Lucas. Oh my! I mean, Lucas needs to look in his mirrors. He is parked on the apex, and they've collided. That is that's a shame for Young Power. That is a fantastic first sector that has just been ruined by a driver simply not looking where they're going.
Yeah, that will likely be a penalty for Lucas. Was watching Harry B as well. He's on his, well, he hasn't set a lap, and on his lap he's spun, coming up the hill just on his way through Dunlop, I believe it is. So Harry isn't going to set a lap. We've still got another 4 drivers yet to set a lap. Lucas, who, as you mentioned, did block Young Power. Do expect a penalty for him. Can't penalise him for the race, as is the system of the game, but Lucas just starting his lap now. Not a representative time, puts him 15th. He's going to go again. Cool Hans Carter, VRT Luke, just starting his lap. Luke
Benjamin
just getting his lap in by about 3.
Benjamin invalidated and has crashed in anger.
So we've got a battle for pole between Elting, Midnight, and VRT George, or anyone else who pops up, but it's looking like them 4 at the moment.
Currently fast in Sector 1, this is going to be interesting to watch. Currently fast in Sector 1 out of the drivers, I believe, as someone else has now just taken it, the fastest out of the guys up front was Midnight, and he's invalidated though, so Midnight is now out of the fight. So Kyle Tink has set the fastest Sector 2, so Kyle Tink here could be on for a pole position. As he comes around the final corner now, where is he going to go? And it is pole! Can he hold on to it though? You got a temp advantage as M&T Yon F1 has gone second. That's a name I haven't said yet today. M&T Yon F1 has, I don't know, I'm
Midnight
pretty
pits as well.
Midnight
pits,
invalidated that lap in his pit.
George Nader, here we go. Second.
Oh, so close. That's I'm now quick look any sectors that are popping up further down the order. Only for Lucas actually, who's on quite a nice lap. After the drama he had a few seconds ago, Lucas around the final corner. What sort of lap time is Lucas going to put in? And he goes P5, so a solid lap there for Lucas. However, questionable act earlier in qualifying, potentially actually gained him a place. But Young Power has been really was on for a lap that could potentially fight for pole, and has instead got pole of the different strategy. So Young Power starting 11th. I was going to say
it's not all doom and gloom. Yeah, it's not pole, but arguably 11th, maybe better than starting somewhere like 8th around a track like this. You know, he's got a fresh choice of tyres. He can play around with the strategy should he so choose. But look how tight this field is. You know, first of all, first down to 3rd separated by 700s, but first all the way down to 16th separated by less than 8 tenths. So. And it's not like this is a necessarily short track. Yeah, there's lots of places where drivers can gain time in braking zones and traction zones. Low speed, medium speed, high speed corners. This track has it all. and to have gaps of 8 tenths between first and 16th, it's a really closely contested field here today.
Yeah, it's been almost a step back to what we had last season, as the top 8 are covered by a quarter of a second. So you're getting feels a bit like last season when we had a very close field. But yeah, it is Kyle Dink who gets the pole position. A driver who had a very strong start to the season with 2 second places and was looking like a solid, potentially a championship contender, but then had a few bad races and knocked him down in the championship and lost a lot of points to, at the time, the dominant Midnight. Speaking of whom, starts 7th on the grid. So perhaps this is a chance for some of Midnight's rivals to catch up a bit of points. But with the previous race winner Duncan not racing today, it appears Duncan very much either wins the race or doesn't arrive. So that is Duncan's season so far, I'm fairly sure. But it's looking good still for Midnight in terms of the championship, but in terms of this race, that is not where Midnight would have wanted to start. But I mean, around Japan, turn 1, could we see a bit of contact between the leaders? As it does look nice and dry, a bit overcast, but a nice and dry day for Tier 1, unlike Tier 2, which had torrential rain, which I'm surprised wasn't red flag, to be honest. But we wait now for the drivers to load in. So, Alex, any predictions you have for this race? Any sort of perhaps not necessarily not necessarily related to the results, but what's your bold prediction for the race?
Rain to come at the end.
Bold prediction.
Calling it. It rained last season, rained in Tier 2, it's going to rain, I'm telling you.
Okay.
But in terms of the actual racing, we know the top 3 separated by almost nothing. Midnight and Benjamin not getting their final runs in, so they've got more pace in the tank. Don't be surprised if Midnight and Benjamin start making up them positions and start challenging for P1 in the race. Kai, though, is the first time in a couple of races he's actually set a representative lap in qualifying, and he's on pole, proving he's got the pace. Let's see if he's able to convert that into a win.
So, we now look at Kai, who leads the field away for their outlap. Let's get up the tyre choice here for everyone as we prepare. So, easy to read out the tyre choice. That's thank you to everyone that started outside the top 10 for making it easier for me. Top 10 soft tyres. From 11th to 20th, medium tyres. That's your tyres for you. That's nice and simple. That's made life a bit easier. It could be interesting though on that sort of the switch over between the two strategies. If we see all those 10 drivers all staying out, if the pack stays nice and sort of close together, then we could see when the top 10 do eventually pit, they may come out outside the top 10 and have to make their way through all of these cars to get back to the front, which could potentially cause some issues for the leaders. As we've seen in the past this season, there has been some incidents when getting back through traffic, so it'll be crucial for these leaders to avoid that, but at the same time get through any back markers quickly, because otherwise they'll get past. Yeah, it is a packed group we have today. All 20 drivers here to race. And on the pole there's Kyle Dink, followed by VRT George. Then it is Emity Yon F1, who popped a time late in that session. CRG Benjamin in 4th, the reigning champion, not having the best season so far, but he'll be looking to bounce back on a track that he dominated that last season. Quentin Lucas had a bit of drama in qualifying, but in the end, on the flying lap when it counted, he got that 5th place. Warax Rage, he's had not had the best season so far. I believe he has 1 win, but given the championship contention that he put himself into last season, so far this season has not been ideal for him. But he will be looking to get some more good points today. The championship leader, I should say, Shazoo Midnight, sitting 7th on the grid. He'll be looking to make up positions early on and try and make his way up the order to keep his comfortable championship cushion. Then it is Cool Hands Carter in 8th position for the Mercedes team. VER Margaret in 9th. The second Mercedes of MNT Hercules in 10th. Then it is Young Power, Lars Kramer, TL44S, Scott Bugner, Donkey, VRT Luke, Shazoo Joey, Ryan 55X, Harry B, and bringing up the back of the grid, it is MNT Smash, as he now lines up into his grid spot. We wait now for the lights to come on. Lights are coming on now. 5 red lights. And we are racing in Suzuka. Will it be a good start for Kyle? I think he's had good starts this season, and he does get a good start. Off the line and leads into turn 1 as it's battling between Yone F1 and George as they make their way through turn 2 now and into the S section here. They stay too wide. Through the S's, will George back out? He does back out there and settles into 3rd place. Benjamin now is going to be hounding on the back of George's car, but he's not quite close enough at the moment as the field is stringing out into a single file rhythm. But will anyone make any mistakes? They get up through the hill and make their way down towards the Degners. Looks like pretty much everyone has kept it safe going through the first sector of this race. But it is Carlton who gets away well and leads as we go into the hairpin on lap 1. Will we see anyone send one up into the hairpin? George a little bit wide. That could potentially, as safety cars deployed, and there's been something that's happened at the back of the order there, and it is TL44S that has had a big crash, and the safety car is out. Alex, did you see what happened there?
Now I was following along in the mid-pack. Young Power, I believe, has damage on his front wing. Well, I don't think that's got anything to do. He does have damage on his front wing. I'm not sure who TL44S went off with and had contact with. If he's just put it in the wall, I'm not entirely sure as to why there's a safety car. No retirements, no massive damage. It's good for TL44S because he can just strap on a new front wing and drive straight up to the back of the pack. But yeah, strange that there's a safety car deployed for that one. Back to the front, Kyleton got away well, but the best of the starters was actually MNT
they're pitting. Sorry to interrupt you there, Alex. Kyleton pits. So does MNT Yone. George stays out. Benjamin pits. Metal stays out. Midnight stays out.
There will surely be stops for the hard tyres. Hard tyres to the end, indeed.
This will be the 3rd time this season we've seen this sort of thing happen. As annoyingly, this is when the timing glitch happened, so we're not quite sure what's going on here. But pitting for the hards, how many drivers have stayed out? How many drivers have pitted? That is going to be the question. 4 drivers had damage towards the back of the pack.
5 of the soft drivers have stayed out, so half of those who started on softs have stayed out, and then in terms of those starting on the mediums, it's just, I believe, Lars and Joey. But no, actually that's not right. There is a huge timing glitch.
There indeed is. Let's wait and see what is going on here. I'm going to go on board with Kai and try and get an idea of what's going on. So it's Williams at the back of that group of cars. So how many cars have stayed out?
So George leads, so 6th is effectively the lead. 7 cars have
stayed out, I believe.
Yeah, so what is 4th now on my screen? Yeah, yes, so currently it's a Haas 1-2 actually.
And it's nearly correct, only 2 cars incorrect and 1 car incorrect, and we wait now for Young Power to go through the sector split, I would imagine is what's going to fix it. And it is, as we now have the actual race order. So 7 cars stayed out there. I mean, there goes our fun strategy battle that we were looking forward to. We've now got, I mean, it's a different kind of battle, but given
it's still fun.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be intriguing to see here how the hard tyres work. Are they going to be... I mean, the soft tyres are still very fresh. They're still going to be quicker than the hards by a considerable margin. The mediums will still be quicker than the hards by a considerable margin. I don't see the thought process here for Kai. And for his pit. Yeah, they don't have to stop again, I get that. But, I mean, we could quite easily see Kyle didn't get caught up here in the traffic, because surely these hard tyre runners are going to drop back. So, I definitely wouldn't say it's over for George here, because if he can set the laps he needs to, I mean, it's going to be tough to get. Surely he's not going to get the pit window, the gap required to pit by the time we get to by the time he gets to his pit window. But it's still going to have so much more grip than those hard runners. I must say I'm quite surprised by this. But it's an interesting one for sure. That is for certain. I'm trying to figure this out at the moment, see what we expect to happen. I have no idea what to expect here. Everyone now with lovely full front wings. But yeah, this has been a intriguing start to the race. But now I just have to wait and see what these drivers do on the restart. The Haas drivers, if they're working together here, could get away well. But if any of the soft or medium guys start battling with each other, that's their race over. Because they can't afford to lose any time now. They have to be 100% pushing until their pit stop. Because otherwise they have no chance. And it is hard to overtake here, so it's going to be hard to make their way back through the order. But I mean, all it takes is a mid-race safety car, which with 20 cars still in the race around Japan, where it's not impossible to crash around this circuit. Walls are close and it's a high-speed track, so it's very much possible that we could see another safety car in this race. If that comes when those like George and Lucas, Midnight and War Rage can pit, then we could well see this race entirely flip on its head again. So, I mean, Alex, if you have to pick it now, which strategy is going to work at the moment? Is it going to be soft to medium? Is it going to be the medium to the soft, which I would assume is what the medium runners are going to do? I'll just ask you this simply: what tyre would you want to be on at the moment? The soft, medium, or the hard?
Right now, you'd want to be on the soft. Is it best strategy-wise? I think we're going to wait. We're going to have to wait and find out. The hard tyre, although they can go to the end, it's not a good race tyre at all. If George can get his foot down and open up, say, an 8-second gap to the likes of Kai, who is the current provisional leader, having the stops played out as the safety car is in this lap, so I won't go on for too long. But if George can open up 8, maybe even more seconds to Kai, because let's not forget, the softs and the mediums right now are going to be quicker than the hards because they've been barely anywhere in them. So if George can get down and open a gap with fresher, softer tyres at the end of the race, he can close up 10 seconds or so and then go and make that move. So the next sort of 5, 6, 7, 8 laps, absolutely crucial for those who have not pit, but also crucial for Kai Elting and the likes of the hard runners who have pit. They need to light up their tyres and get moving and try and minimise the damage. It's damage limitation at the moment, and for those on the hard tyres, try and not lose as much time as possible to the likes of the softs who have got fresh tyres, softest compound available. They can get their foot down and drive to their heart's content right now, and that's exactly what they need to do.
The gap's already over a second there for Kai. He must have made a mistake on the restart, because he's not losing much more time than that, because he's now actually got back into the DRS, so he must have made a mistake on the restart, because he fell over a second out of behind Joey in 7th place. But I mean, it's going to be a tough one here for Kai to. I mean, he's going to have to sort of focus on keeping that DRS, but at the same time keep an eye on the racing point behind him, because whilst Kai's going to have to try and keep up with his driver on better tyres, the racing point of M&T Yone is all he has to do is keep up with another driver on the same tyres. So surely that is much easier to do and requires less ERS. So at the moment, M&T Yone F1 is in a good situation, but it's not the best. So it's going to be interesting to see if they can get that DRS or not. As CRG Benjamin is actually nearly out of the DRS and will be out of the DRS probably by the time they get to the 3rd lap after this safety car. But it's strange. It seems some drivers are thriving on these hard tyres and others are not. But so far on that restart, it's pretty much status quo. A few overtakes down throughout the order here. After the restart on damage, nobody has any as things stand. But at the front, it is still George who leads the way. Could he get the win today? Could it be a Haas 1-2 potentially? I mean, to be honest with you, I wouldn't be surprised if we see some team orders here at Haas if they are in a party. I mean, it's very, very unlikely, but Lucas could be in a position here to actually hold up the pack behind him and try and get the gap for George. But at the same time, if he went that slowly and lost the DRS, he'd probably be passed quite quickly. So I doubt that will be attempted by the Haas team. But as things stand, I mean, I'm actually going to get the leader gap up just to see already the gap they have to the hard runners. 4.5 seconds. Now that's not to do with the hard tyre struggling, I wouldn't say. That's just to do with sort of the field's spread throughout that happens naturally. But it's looking like the field is spreading it more than perhaps the hard tyres would have wanted it at the moment, as Kyle Tink here is sort of 9 tenths away from Joey at the moment. I imagine Kyle Tink is going to push a bit harder as we get closer to DRS being enabled, which should be on this next lap. Indeed it is. Race Control have said DRS is enabled, so it won't be available to use on this lap. Because of course only one DRS straight here at the Suzuka circuit. That is on the main straight, and the detection point is before the line, so they did not detect the DRS before they went through the detection before it was enabled, to put simply. But Kyle at the moment just about sticking within the DRS, as Joey is actually dropping back a bit from Lars. So even if Kai can keep the DRS here with Joey, it's not comfortable up ahead, because if Joey then loses that DRS, that puts Kai in a very tricky situation where he then has to pass Joey if he wants to try and catch up, and that's just more time that they're losing throughout this sort of part of the race. Is now over a second away. It's a true strategy battle we have going on here. That is, I don't know if we'll see much racing because of it, but I don't mind, because this is going to be a fun one to watch. I mean, at the moment, Alex, what are you thinking? Which driver would you like to be at the moment?
Do you know what? I'm quite happy up here in the commentary box, watching from this one, because I genuinely don't know. I'm monitoring the gap between George and Lucas. George and Elting, sorry, obviously that is the leader of the race and the provisional leader of the race. Once the top 7 carry out their stops, 5.2 seconds is the gap and growing. So, you know, I predicted about an 8-second gap for George. It looks like at this rate, another 4 or 5 laps on their tyres, we could be seeing a bigger gap than that, as he does set the fast lap of the race. So George not slowing down, he's broken the DRS range to his teammate Lucas, who doesn't quite seem able to keep up with him, but crucially isn't getting swallowed by the pack. So George certainly in a good position here, opening up the gap to the provisional race leader that is Kai Elting on them hard tyres.
Doing a good job at the moment. However, it could all change in a heartbeat here, because this track, when you push at this track, you put a lot on the line, so it's going to be not going to be easy here for George out front. I mean, I must say that the clear air must be nice out there, as first of the penalties comes in with the Marglit in 5th place. With how the pack is looking at the moment, how it's staying pretty much nose to tail throughout the field, it's exactly what the Marglit did not need. Bear with me a second, apologies for this. And
so far, upkeeping throughout this lap, both drivers have no warnings as of right now, but that gap between George and Elting started the lap at 5 seconds, it's now up to 5.8 seconds, and actually Elting is coming under pressure from MMT Yone behind him. So rather than applying the pressure to the car ahead, that was very close there between Yone and Elting there through the final chicane. I'm not sure if that was Kai early on the brakes or Yone later, or a combination of both. That gap's still growing, however. Elting now defending from the car behind. This is exactly what these guys don't need. And Commenter Lucas is off, and Lucas is in the wall. Lucas has gone off on the exit of turn 2, front wing damage, and that's going to drop him all the way back to the back of the pack, and without any form of safety car today, that is his chances of anything in this race absolutely down the toilet.
Oh, that's off the road. It's Donkey into the barriers, backwards into the wall by Donkey. That looks like he perhaps saw Commenter Lucas a bit late and tried to swerve to avoid, and just slid straight off the road on those hard compound tyres. Luckily got away without damage. We're starting to see more and more penalties flood in now, as Luke, TL44 and Shazoo Joey all got them. As that's another moment, and that's Luke. Luca's going slowly. What has happened to Lucas? He's missing a big chunk of wing here. Looks like he's had some sort of incident, perhaps similar to that, as Midnight now has 3 seconds. The penalties are already flooding in at this stage of the race. But I think the bad thing for George Nader about his teammate crashing, I should just say George now, really. But the bad thing for George now is that he's now got Midnight on his tail, and I think I'd be much more comfortable with my teammate behind me than Midnight behind me, because you know Midnight is rapid, and you know Midnight is going to want the win. So it's going to be interesting to see here, as apparently the pit window is now open. So let's get the leader interval up here, as that's the Marglit pitting. Could we potentially see these leaders try and go a bit longer, deliberately to try and extend that gap more and more? Because the tyre wear's only, it's 47% on all 4 tyres for George Nader at the moment, which isn't dreadful. He can definitely go quite a bit longer, for sure. So, what is the current gap to Kai? It's 5.5 seconds, that just isn't enough. As Lucas retired in the pit lane, so that will not cause a safety car. But yeah, that is our first retirement of the day. For a race that was looking like could potentially have our most finishes for quite a while, has now taken a hit down to 19 cars. However, I would be surprised if we get less finishes than last week when only 10 cars finished the race. But well, at this point last week we only had 10 cars in the race, so it's good to see these guys keeping it on the road a bit better than they did last week. But it's a very different track, so it's a whole different story as Luke now leaves the session. Not his day today. Of course, the winner of round 1 of the season, and the driver with the most wins last season, VRT Luke, not having the best of seasons so far, since his win, I should say. But the top 3 here, Nose to Tail. Warrage just hanging on at the moment, actually almost just outside of DRS there, and might miss out on this occasion. But I mean, it's hard. When you go on board with him, it doesn't look... Oh no, it's because I'm looking at leader. Ignore my stupidity. That is... Yeah, that's me being an idiot. Again, this lap, apparently the pit window is open. Hopefully this doesn't become a thing that happens every lap.
Yeah, that's going to get extended by a couple of laps due to the safety car period. That gap between Eltink and George starting to stalemate a little bit, coming down a tenth or two in the last couple of laps actually, so Eltink doing what he needs to do right now. But let's not forget, when the top 3 of George, Midnight and Warwick's Rage all pit, you've still got Lars and Joey.
Oh, Benjamin has crashed into the barrier. Sorry to interrupt, Alex. Benjamin has crashed into the walls through the S section there, the Renault driver. That is not what he would have wanted. What has happened here to the reigning champion? The champion's curse continues to... Oh, Ghosting is a real saviour here. Oh, again, mini heart attack as I see another car go full throttle into Benjamin. Luckily, Ghosting is a feature which, unlike many Codemasters things, actually works quite well. So Benjamin out of the fight for the win here. Wasn't looking great, but wasn't looking too bad as he's now straight on at the Degner.
I think his wheel disconnected. There.
And
yeah.
Yeah. This is not what Benjamin... I mean, just a few moments ago speaking about Silverstone. And,
yeah.
Well... Let's hope this doesn't...
I'm keeping an eye on the front whilst that's going on. Let's not lose complete sight of all this as George does pit. So, George pulls the undercut on Midnight. Probably a smart move there, because I think if he would have stayed out, Midnight would have had him down into turn 1. Midnight looking extremely racy, and it's in-lap critical for Midnight, out-lap critical for VRT George.
Let's see, as he's getting held in the pits there quite a bit. No, he doesn't. That's the game. Sorry about that, everyone. But George now on his way out of the pit lane. He's going to come out into any clear air here. On his way out, and he has got a nice bit of clear air. He's got about 2 seconds in front of him at the moment, which obviously isn't much, but probably is better than what Kai has at the moment. One of the things I was thinking about a moment ago before Benjamin crashed was that one of the reasons why Kai perhaps was starting to close up so much was because before he had 7 cars in front of him. And 6 between himself and George, but of course as drivers started to pit and the pit window opened, that number was sort of reducing, so almost the tyres sort of were becoming less of a factor, and sort of naturally the field was closing up again to fill that hole left by the drivers who pit. But no, George is in 14th for the moment and 20 seconds behind Midnight. Do you know the pit delta here?
You're probably losing the best part of 25 seconds.
So wow, that is...
It's one of the longer ones.
That is a very bad news there for Midnight, who at the moment would come out behind the Marglit, if that is correct. And Midnight is indeed into the pit lane. So let's see, what are they going to do? Onto the medium compound tyres, as we would have expected, but where is it going to put them out? Come on to Lucas, a 3-second time penalty.
Lucas, yeah.
As yellow flags, who is that? It's a Renault.
Is it Young Power?
It may be.
Is it Benjamin again?
I think it is Benjamin. Let me check. He is in that part of the lap, so yeah, I believe it may have been Benjamin who had that moment.
He's ghosted. So I assume he's just come out the pits. I don't think he had a spin. I think it might have just been a random yellow flag. But yeah, Benjamin ghosted, being a lap down. Nice to see that he hasn't retired, that he's still sticking in there.
That's good to see. So we didn't see much of last week, but that is good to see there. Benjamin doing what he can, as Smash now gets a 3-second time penalty. Midnight came out ahead of Warrage actually in the end, as that is a spin for Donkey, who has spun it through the S's there.
For a second time. Not a great race for him.
No, it's not been the greatest season so far for Donkey, a driver who scored quite a lot. Oh, he's lost it again. I think he might have hot tyres there. As that looked like he was not taking much speed at all on the rear went, so he's let those tyres cool down a bit. Does Donkey, as he now makes his way into the hairpin, so I'm sure the hairpin exit will let them cool down. As he now makes his way, as that is Warage getting past the teammate. Could that be Team Wars at Ferrari? I would not be surprised if that is the case. As the lead Ferrari of Warage makes his way into 14th place. Midnight is just over a second behind George at the moment as they make their way down the main straight, and George sets the fastest lap of the race there with a 28.8 there, solid lap from George, showing the pace he has.
Yeah, importantly as well, 28.8. That's, you know, that's 1.4 seconds quicker than Elting's last time. 1.4, 1.5 seconds quicker actually, to be precise, quicker than Kyle Elting's last time. So George really getting a move on. What he will have to fight through though, like that pace is more than enough to close him up to Elting before the end of the race. He's got to get through all the traffic, which will start at MNT Smash, of which you can see the rear wing of the Red Bull. That's about 3 seconds up the road. I don't think it'll be long until we're on the back of Smash, but he's got to get through to Elting, and you got to say them tyres will likely be complaining come the end of the race, having done, well, 26 laps on them.
And it's very true. They are. It's definitely comfortable. You don't have to worry about punctures, but it isn't going to be rapid towards the end. However, you could argue the same about the hard tyres. They're not going to be rapid come the end of this race either. So.
Oh, I was talking about the hard tyres. Anyway.
Oh, sorry. That's me looking at the TAS system. That's my mistake. But yeah. But both tyres are not going to be in great shape come the end of this race. Medium tyres.
I'd argue the mediums would be quite comfortable, given they're comfortable on a normal stint.
They're not going to have to worry about
extending it a few laps, given the safety car. I don't think it'll be an issue.
I can get. Around here, they usually get in a normal stint go up to 70% roughly. Extending it a couple laps, yeah, brings it down to 60%. But it's still, they're not going to be rapid come the end of it. So it's not going to be a cakewalk for George as he makes his way through the S's now. But as you mentioned, it's not only the catching is not going to be too much of an issue. It's getting through the traffic quickly, because as we said before the qualifying even started, or during qualifying, it's not that easy to pass around here, and it's going to be a tough one. You'd think with the tyres he will be able to pass. It's not going to be impossible, but it's going to probably take him a lap or so to pass each driver, and with what 8 drivers in front of him, that's going to take. I mean, if we say 8 laps, if it takes him a lap to pass each driver, he's not going to have many laps left at the end to try and hunt down Kai. But the one good thing for George, if it can be, it's a good and a bad thing. Good thing is that once he gets past the two, once he sort of clears these few stragglers that are hanging back from the lead group, it is then pretty much one long train, all the way from Kai down to go all the way down to VFU Young Power. So it's once he gets into that train, it's going to be a DRS train, which is going to make it hard to pass. But once he's there, it's quite close. He doesn't have to worry about hunting down the next car like he's going to have to at the moment with drivers like Smash and Ryan and Harry. Yeah, I'm just looking at the sectors at the moment here.
He's got Midnight extremely close to him as well, so yeah, if George pulls a move on, say, Smash, which is seemingly coming, them two, the gap between those closing up lap by lap, if George pulls a move and is unsuccessful, Midnight will likely say thank you very much and swoop up the inside of him and take the position. So, you know, he's, as much as George will be looking forward, I'm sure he'll be looking backwards as well. You can see George's red light flashing, which shows he's critical for ERS. Midnight running on, well, just above 50% at the minute, so it's looking good for Midnight, but he does have that penalty and 1 lap pressure tyres, so you know, it's a balancing act at the moment for Midnight as he pushes on, still right on the back of George, and expect these two to start making a move on Smash extremely shortly.
Yeah, it's only a matter of time. You have to think it's not an if, it's a when. But speaking of that, Midnight is right on the back, and he's going to the outside now of the final chicane. Midnight going to the outside. Look at it as they all lock up into the tight chicane before the front stretch. Midnight not able to make it move on this occasion, but all of them are going to have DRS here as we're starting to see that Joey, that I believe has just come into the pits from either first or second, I believe second. But on this occasion it is George Nader who is oh, he sent it up the inside. Wow, that was brave. That was brave there from George Nader. He knew he had to make the move. As it's wheel to wheel between Midnight.
Midnight follows as well, yeah.
Oh, that could end badly. Is he going to... and just about clears him then as they go through the S's. Midnight, great follow through there for the AlphaTauri driver. He needed to make that move. Because, I mean, George Nader, I don't know if you saw it, but I went on board just at the perfect moment. George Nader really sent it in. Put a lot of faith in Emmerich Smash to not just turn in. Because that could have definitely gone much worse for both of those drivers.
Yeah, I was following George on board, and he faked into, well, just on the way into turn one. He was nowhere near close enough for a move. And Smash actually gave him the line and left in the room, so...
Crash for Joey, and he's out of the race. Joey's out of the race. After a crash under the bridge there. And safety car's deployed. Safety car is deployed. This
is
changes
great
everything.
For Lars. Lars is going to gain a lot through this. Let's see what the hard tyre runners do. Surely they're going to pit. But that does leave them at risk of dropping behind George. The gap, as Donkey's got to drive the penalty for speeding. Lars, of course he pits. Kai does pit. Yon stays out.
Emity Hercules does pit. Young Power stays out as well. Grant Carter stays out. What will Scott Bugner do? He pits. Harry B pits. Ryan pits. George pits. George is pitting.
Yeah, they've got to. It's a shame, and it has ruined their strategies, but yeah, they had to, because just being on them harder tyres, they drop down like a pebble in a stream to the bottom, and or in a river, I should say. But yeah, they'd certainly drop a lot. It's ruined their strategies, but that just means we've got an entertaining last 10 laps or so on our hands with these drivers fighting their way through, and the likes of M&T, Young Power, Cool Hands Carter and Warwick's Rage fighting to the absolute death to keep their position.
The thing I like about this situation at the moment is Warwick's Rage really is almost creating almost a gradient between those that are on the softs and those that are on the hards. He could really he could help out the hard runners a lot here, but at the same time, it's because you'd think fresh soft on the back of a driver with old hards, easy overtake, going to happen straight away. But fresh soft on the back of relatively fresh mediums, that's going to take, I think, a few laps to build it up and go for it. Same goes for getting the mediums on the hards. So it could well slow down the progression of all these drivers here, but more Rage, because of that sort of, even if it's only a lap delay, with only 10 laps left in this race, and probably less than that by the actual time the safety car comes in, it's going to be interesting to see. I don't think it's our last safety car of the day, looking at the our current strategy situation. I've got a feeling this is not the last safety car of the day. But we'll just have to wait and see. Did Benjamin get back on the lead lap by any chance? I don't believe... Did he? Let me check. Gap to leader. I think he might have, you know. No, he did not. He's 1 minute and 50 seconds off of the rest of the pack. So he's staying 1 lap down. But only the 1 lap down. Maybe he has got another... Maybe he has got his lap back. I would have thought he would. Because when the leaders pit, he would have gone past them and got the lap back. And he's then since pitted. You know, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure he's got the lap back. Because he's flat out. He's not held back by the safety car. And the question now will be if he can catch the pack before the safety car restarts, presumably, in... Well, I don't think it'll be the end of this lap. I think it'll be the end of next lap. And you think Benjamin will be able to make up that gap in the next sort of lap and a half. Let's
have a quick look at penalties, shall we, whilst we have this chance. Most notably, drive-through for Donkey, who sped under safety car. That is obviously not ideal for the Alfa Romeo driver. That's, of course, you can't serve a driver on the safety car, so that is his race, unless there is another safety car afterwards, which he'll be hoping isn't straight away. He'll be hoping it's a couple laps if one does come out, otherwise that would be quite a kick in the teeth if he just goes to serve his drive-through and just before he gets into the pits, another safety car comes out. A driver with 6 seconds is coming to Lucas, who's sitting near the back of the pack anyway. So it's a straight sort of got a lot of the drivers with penalties sitting quite far back at the moment. Midnight 12th, Margaret 13th, Smash 14th, TL44S 15th. Benjamin here, if he does catch the safety car, he's going to gain quite a lot of positions, purely on penalties. course, Warwick with a 3-second up near the front in 4th place, and Scott Bugner in 8th on with just 3 seconds as well. So that's not ideal for those, but the good thing is they can only lose sort of the 3, like in Scott Bugner's case, he's only going to lose 3 places before there's more drivers with penalties, so it's still got a chance at points, especially if more drivers get penalties, because we've still got just under 10 laps to go. It is very much not over yet. Let's watch Benjamin, shall we? Let's see, is he okay? Do you think he's going to catch up? I'm going to go and say no. You know what? I've changed it. I'm going to say yes. I think he's going to catch the pack. Where are you thinking?
Yeah, I think as long as it doesn't come in this lap, yeah. And I don't think. Well, we'll find out in just a minute if it's going to come out or come in or stay out. I should say, and it is going to stay out. So it's Benjamin's lucky day, and yeah, no worries. He'll probably be on the pack by the time they've reached sort of, well, certainly in the end of the first sector, maybe even by the time they get to turn 1. So no worries for Benjamin. If to play it smart, if he's got another set of softs, he's really pushed on this sort of 2 or 3 laps or so to catch back up. He could pit now and to get on a completely fresh set. He'd be 2 or 3 or 4% up on the likes of the drivers ahead of him if he's got a fresh set, close straight up to the back, because no doubt these tyres, and he does pit, yes. I called it, Jackson.
And so does Donkey. Donkey retires, that's a shame. But Alex Bomberg, the strategist, clearly knows someone within the Renault team here, because he's called that one perfectly. Credit to you for that one. That was quite the call. I would not have seen that one coming. I believe he's put on used tyres, so perhaps not the percentage gain he would have wanted.
Well, clearly them tyres, if you're pushing at 4 or 5% a lap qualifying wise, they're already going to be on over 10%, so you know, strap on a fresh set, he'll close up, no worries, and yeah, happy days.
Looking at the tyre at the moment, for those that are on the softs, Lars 7%, Lars is about 7%, Kai 8%, 7%, Hercules 11%, Scott, Ryan 11%, 6% George Nader, Harry B 6%, 5%, Midnight 10%. Margaret 15%, 0% for Smash, so clearly has not given us his telemetry. TL44S with 7%, Cometa Lucas also hasn't got telemetry from, and already at 7%, but that only matches those in front. Something else, Benjamin won't have to tyre warm quite as much. He has now caught them, of course, but I think he's arriving at that with, what, 90-something degrees Celsius tyre temperature, whereas the others here are having to weave a lot more to keep that tyre temperature at the moment. I like Benjamin's brake heating technique. Just throttle, brake, go. That's
But usually that's how you warm the brakes, using the brakes, Jackson. But
it is indeed.
You know,
it's a risk.
If you have an alternative, please do come out and.
Oh, I just lock up the brakes and hope for the best. I make the tyres. It's a good job this game doesn't have realistic brake locking, because otherwise my tyres would be square after most of my races. But yeah, what I was enjoying about it is how long he was doing it, not the actual thing itself. It was the fact that he was really revving the car out of it and sliding it along.
The front, MNT Young does get this restart sorted and he does go. One interesting thing, them hard tyres are going to struggle to be at the operating temperature compared to the likes of the soft tyres. Lars, in the driver's seat right now, he's surely got to be the pick for the win today in 5th position on soft tyres though. You'd imagine he can go and get them positions. Meanwhile, George already making up position into 9th on Ryan.
Yeah, we see the restart here, and I'm on board from Lars at the moment, and he's so much quicker. He's nearly hit the back of Warage there, as he's just so much quicker than these that are up ahead, and that's a crash. It is Hercules who has had a moment. He's dropped lots of positions. It looks like he's kept it on track without any damage. Ryan has picked up some damage. So has George Nader. But apart from that, it's all clear. Up the inside is Lars. He's hit Warage there. Joined that a bit late, but he's battling with Warage here as they duel it out for 4th place. Warage defending more than you'd perhaps expect at this stage. But Warage really putting the defence on Lars, who you'd say is inevitable to make the overtake. Young Power on the back of Yon at the moment as well. But we see here it's all it takes is one failed attempt at the overtake, like we've just seen. If he gets another failed attempt like that, that'll put Kai right in the driver's seat for this race. As Cool Hans Carter, as up the inside there goes Lars. He's really risking it all there. I don't think that's going to happen. As
Young
Kai
Power's extremely close out the final corner. Yon as well.
Virtual safety car.
That has absolutely saved Yon's lead of the race because Young Power was almost side by side with him. Why have we got a virtual safety car, Jackson? I was looking at the front.
It was Ryan, I believe, who's had some sort. I didn't actually see the actual incident, but he's had something happen to him. Going through the chicane, I don't quite understand how, but he somehow retired during the chicane. My best bet is that there's been some sort of contact on the entrance into the chicane, perhaps a late block or something like that. And a car's come this is my guess here, is that someone's come sliding into the chicane much quicker. As Benjamin drive through, the recovery was looking so good. He's bounced back from that being one lap down, and it's a drive through under virtual safety car here that will put an end to Benjamin's chance at points. But at the front here, this five-way scrappers, that is Young Power, is onto the outside. Goes Lars, the outside of Warroad again, not making it work. Kai looking again here. This is all happening here in this lead group. As Young Power on the back of Yon, Lars on the back of Warroad. I'm not watching from Kai's on board. I mean, that's just, I don't know which onboard to go with, to be honest. I'm going to go with Kai's because this looks like the best one at the moment. But Lars is really pushing the back of Warroad here. Will Young Power go for the lead as they head up into the chicane? Looks like he's got a bit of a run, but it's not good enough. As they make their way through 130R now. Into the chicane they go. Young Power on the back. Will there be any moves further back as that's sliding in there with Scott Bugner slamming the side of Fiat George. And perhaps that may have actually pushed George off a bit. But at the moment, as there's again banging wheels to make their way onto the straight. Will Young Power try anything up front? No, he doesn't. Jarrus not yet enabled. But Young Power not quite able to get Emity Yon yet. Further down the order. I mean, I don't know about you. Are you surprised by how hard it is to overtake at the moment?
Certainly impressed, or not impressed, but surprised by how much some of these drivers are struggling to make a move. Lars is starting to sort of ready up for a move on Warwick's Rage. He's extremely close, but here comes Kai. He's had a good run. Kai looking extremely healthy ERS wise, running at nearly 90%. Everyone ahead of him struggling in the 50s. Young Power at 50, but Yon, crucially, only at 25. So Yon struggling, he's got to conserve, because if not, Young Power will absolutely breeze past him. I have to say, overtaking harder than I expected at this phase in the race.
I think Warwick is exactly what I expected him to do. He's created this sort of fade in terms of the tyre grip, and it's making it sort of, whilst he can't make the move on Carter, Lars is struggling to make the move on Warwick. So it's creating this fade of drivers that can't overtake on each other. Take Warwick out of the equation, I think Lars is perhaps even in the lead by now. But at the moment he's stuck behind Warwick, so they make their way into the chicane as that's Midnight getting past Scott Bugner. They're wheel-to-wheel battling into the chicane, they're braking so very late into there. It amazes me every single time.
Here comes Young Power, let's see what he's able to do. DRS is about 4/10 back on this straight. Yon really struggling for ERS, he's down into 5%. Is Young Power close enough? I don't think he's going to be into turn number 2. Can't quite make a move, but he's really giving the Racing Point a hard time. Further back, Cool Hans Carter, not quite able to be right up the gearboxes of the two ahead, but crucially he's keeping War Rage behind, who is on that sort of the split. He's on the middle ground. He's sort of in no man's land between these two strategies. Nevertheless, he's still holding it in there. He does have that penalty though, which might defer him away from the podium later on in this race. However, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. Lars Kramer, crucially and surprisingly not able to make a move. Is he going to send one up the inside of the hairpin? A popular overtaking spot for the drivers down the inside. He's going to go. He does have a look. He makes a bit of contact there with Warwick's Rage. I think that's just about fair enough. Kai Elting on the back looking to sink his teeth in. Here we go. Lars Kramer has got that moved on. He's up into 4th position. He's really low on ERS though, so he's struggling side by side with Warwick's Rage. Round the outside of Spoon Curve.
Contact.
Back down the inside, and Kramer's round, and he's off. He's in the wall. He's just avoided the wall actually. Benjamin's got off as well. He's gone straight on at Spoon, and he's retired from the session. Not sure if that's going to cause a safety car, but Lars off. But back to the front. Yon still ahead, but Young Power still giving chase. It's Elting now round the outside of Warwick's Rage.
He's going to make it work, is he? Yes, he is. Can he now? Has he got the ERS to make it work down the straight though? He's better off than a lot of those around him.
Here goes Young Power. Young Power's really close. Young covers the inside. Young Power says thanks, I'll go around the outside. And the Renault is up into the lead. Change of leadership. It's all going off here in the last 5 laps here at Suzuka.
We may have thought after that safety car, when those drivers stayed out, we may have thought, oh, that's their race over. They're going to be dropping like a stone through the rest of the pack. But I mean, what a race they're doing at the moment. What a rage here. Very almost like the bodyguard to them. But Kai's off and he's lost the rear. He's just about held on to it. But Moorage is going to go around the outside. He's going to off the inside into the Degner 1. And Kai's off the road. Kai's massively off the road. He just about gets it back on. He's down at 6th place now. But Kai loses a lot of time there as Midnight is going to go up the inside of Warage into the hairpin. What a dive there by Midnight. Can he make this move work? Midnight has sort of come out of nowhere. He's been quite quiet most of this race. But Midnight is back into this group here in the lead pack, and still wheel to wheel forward. They go into the spoon curve and he goes up the inside and he doesn't spin like his teammate did. Midnight up into 4th place now. Warage in 5th. What can Warage do here? Can he hold back Kai, who he just barged off the road a few corners earlier? Kai's going to go to the outside here as they head towards 130R. Can he pull this one off? Kai's going to go to the outside of 130R. It's around the outside for Kai, and he's pulled it around the outside of 130R, now up the inside of the chicane. Will this be a double overtake for Kai? Not quite able to do it as they wheel bang on contact. Midnight's around. Midnight's sideways. And that's Harry that gets past them all. Harry gets past all of them, as that is a massive moment there for Midnight and Kai, as it's a pack of 4 cars here going into turn 1. Who is going to come out on top? So many drivers in this pack of cars. Kyle on the inside of Warrage, and he pushes him right back off the road, just like Warrage did to him in the Degners. Warrage now dropping down, he's around and into the wall hard. Warrage is out of the race there. That is a massive crash there for Warrage. He's been hit in the rear as they made their way through the S's, but I think it's too late in the race for a safety car. Harry here, lead car and softs now, I believe, as he makes his way into the Degners. As Young Power with the lead of the race, but has a penalty, as I believe Alex is lagged out there. So, oh, you're here.
Screen freeze. So I'm still following on, but I'm going to let you cover this because I'm now on the stream, unless you can send me an invite back, Jackson. It's an absolutely enthralling finish to this Grand Prix here.
I'm sorry, I'm not going to send the invite purely because I'm too enthralled by what's going on here. I don't want to miss a second of it. Harry here, now the lead car on soft, but has he got time to catch these leaders? He's about 3 seconds off the lead here, but that 3-second time penalty for Young Power means that Yon is now the net leader of this race. But Young Power might even be able to pull the 3 seconds because it's a 2-second gap behind him. But Cool Hand Carter here, he's going to be the first victim of Harry. Harry got past those cars in that contact out at the chicane. Cool Hand Carter locks up his inside front into the chicane there. Cool Hand Carter coming out. Harry B following him. Harry B surely going to fly past down the straight. Yes, he is. Look at the O's, but he's going to go to the inside into turn 1. Cool Hand Carter doesn't even really fight it. Or will he, as they're still wheel to wheel into turn 1. And Harry does get up into 3rd place here. Harry could potentially win this race today. He's now on the back of MNT Yon. Could Harry get his first win in his career here today? I mean, Alex, I don't think you were there for the race, but if I remember correctly, Harry did have a win before in Formula EuroLeague Tier 1. However, I remember correctly, he lost it on a post-race penalty and the win eventually went to Kai. And, well, now Harry has a chance to redeem himself here. As he's in 3rd place, he's currently in a position to take 2nd place because of the penalty for Young Power. But you've got to say, as that's Midnight getting past Cool Hand Carter at the hairpin, a bit of wheel banging there. Oh, wheel bang is very much the key word of the day, and probably the most used word of the day, as they make their way through towards the spoon curve now. Yon is, I mean, Yon's got to be smart here. Does he try and defend for his life and settle, like, I mean, Yon, surely his best bet here is to lose the position to Harry, and to then get, and it looks like that is his plan here. Surely his best bet is to lose the position to Harry. Is Harry going to go for the move? He's going to go for the move here, into 130R. Harry up the inside, into 130R. And onto the brakes, into the chicane. Harry now in the net lead of this race with the penalty for Young Power. Yon here needs to stay with Harry to try and get P2 on that penalty. But that's M&T Yon in the pits. M&T Yon is pitting. And he had a puncture. He had a puncture on the rear left there for M&T Yon. That is heartbreak from what was a potential podium. M&T Yon pulls it into the pits, and that's his chance of a podium gone. McLaren now sitting 2nd and 3rd, and if Kai can catch up, this is a potential 1-2 for the McLaren team here, who have not had the best of seasons so far. Harry currently in a position to win the race with the 3 seconds for Young Power, but can he take it? as those soft tyres surely will be much quicker as they make their way through this part of the lap. Kyle Tink's 8 tenths off getting into second place, but he makes a small mistake there, and that's cost him a couple tenths of a second. Harry B here being sensible. He hasn't got much ERS to play with, neither does Kai in second place. But Harry here, he is playing it safe. He knows the 3 second in front, and he doesn't need to push much harder. He knows he can play it safe and still get the win here today. Harry through the spoon curve.
Think of the tyres. Think of the tyres of Young Power though. Remember, we had, what was it? It was Young's tyres. He pitted on the same lap for Haas as Young Power, and he's got a puncture.
81%.
Surely Young Power's tyres have got to be so close, and he's running out of ERS into the final couple of corners. This is going to be so tight.
As Young Power, I'm going to keep my eyes glued to this here, but Young Power will be the first driver to cross the checkered flag here today. Young Power crosses the line first, but it is Harry who wins the race for the McLaren team. And it is Young Power who holds on to P2. Kyle Tink in P3 as they're crashing across the line. Cool Hands Carter finishes in 4th place. Scott Bugner in 5th. It is TL44S in 6th place as George, the driver who led most of the first part of the race, now in 7th for the finish. Midnight down in 8th. Lucas in 9th, and I just about missed the driver in 10th there. I mean, I don't have much of a voice left after that race. I absolutely loved that finish, and rightfully so. The game gives driver of the day to Harry B there. He stayed out of the way when the carnage happened in front, and Harry takes his first career win here in Japan at the Suzuka circuit. What a drive there from the McLaren driver.
Yeah, unbelievable. What a finish to the race. And, well, after what was, quite frankly, a disappointing race last season, I think this season has more than, this race today has more than made up for that.
You couldn't have said it better myself. I've also just realised Harry started last. Not only did he make quite a lot of positions, Harry started 19th on the grid and has won the race. That is one hell of a drive there for the McLaren driver. Young Power gets 2nd place for Renault. I mean, he made those hard tyres work when other drivers just couldn't, and without that penalty, maybe he would have won it. But you could look at the other side, perhaps if he didn't have that penalty, perhaps if he hadn't pushed as hard as he did and ended up resulting in that penalty, perhaps he wouldn't have crossed the line first. But Kyle Tink gets 3rd place. Cool Hands Carter 4th. Scott Bugner 5th. TL44S 6th. George 7th. Midnight 8th. Not a great race to championship leader. Lucas 9th. And Emmett Yon F1 gets a point after pitting before the final lap. What a race, Alex. What a race. I am completely lost for words. And could you invite the podium drivers to the party, please, Alex?
Of course. It would be an absolute pleasure. You'll have to remind me who they are. It would be an absolute pleasure to talk to them.
It is Harry B, it is VRT Young Power, and it is Kyle Tink. Oh, that was... I mean, I look forward to hearing the drivers after that one. I must say, it's probably a good job we're talking to the top 3, because I've got a feeling some of the lower drivers may not have been overly happy with some of the endings that happened. Perhaps even Kai wasn't happy with his contact with Midnight, would arguably cost him the race win, and at least cost him P2. But, I mean, in races like that, the talent you have to have is the ability to avoid the carnage. And that is exactly what Harry did today. And put on an absolute masterclass. And, I mean, he led none of the race. He led absolutely none of it. But walks home with the winner's trophy. And, I mean, what a drive. It came out of nowhere. But it's those races that really remind you why you love motorsport. And that was just one hell of a race. Oh, I look forward to talking to the podium drivers after this one here. Oh, if my voice can take it, that is. Oh, jeez, that was definitely a race that makes up for the quiet one last season, which was dominated by Benjamin. This season, Benjamin didn't quite have the same luck as he did, or not luck, didn't have the same pace he did last season in the wet conditions.
I don't think he had any luck full stop.
That's very true, actually. Or he did have luck, it was just all bad, that was the problem. But
well,
yeah.
The 3 drivers, the 3 podium sitters provisionally, I must say provisionally, subject to stewards' inquiries and anything else. They have all been invited to the party, so Jackson, just a couple of seconds and hopefully won't belong to your dreams come true of talking to the top three, but you know, I'd love to sort of expand on any points you've made recently, Jackson, but I think quite simply put, what a race, full stop.
Yeah, there's not much else to say about it really, is there? That was one of the races where it's one of those races where it's a different kind of talent you need. It's not about raw pace necessarily. It's not about being on the right strategy necessarily. It is about being the driver that avoids it all. And that is one of the most important talents to have in motorsport in general. Not just in Formula 1, not in life in general even in a way. But that was just a finish that I will never forget. And a final few laps that I will never forget. As the podium drivers start to join the party now. I think we have nowhere else to start. I mean, there's nowhere else to start other than with our race winner, Harry. I mean, just tell us how you're feeling after that one, mate.
Well, yeah. I mean, I couldn't actually really believe it. Yeah, it's probably the slowest I've been in all season. Like in one race, I've sort of limited my time on F1 2020 now, sort of trying to move on. So I sort of just to sort of turn up. I couldn't believe it. I mean, everything obviously went the way of the safety car timings and whatnot, and incidents and crashes, but yeah, I couldn't believe it. A fluke, definitely.
Well, I wouldn't say it was that. Of course, I mean, yes, you had some luck go your way today, but still, I mean, you have to be there to take advantage of that luck, and, well, you were today. To take home a win that is definitely one that will stand out across the season. When people look back at this season, that'll be one that people will remember. And that's always the races you want to win. It's the ones that the crazy ones that always, at least myself, feel that they're the ones that you always want to win, because they're the ones that people remember the most. Second place today, Young Power. Have they joined the party yet? Let me check quickly. Has Young Power's yet to join the party? So we'll skip down to third place, shall we? Kai, how are you feeling after that one? Looked like you were perhaps going to win that one at one stage in the late in the race. I mean, throughout that race, your early strategy call onto the hards perhaps looked like the right way to go. Then, of course, the safety car mixed things up. I mean, what was your thought process on that final restart?
Yeah, just send it. But I was stuck behind Lars and the hard runner, so yeah, it was pretty annoying. Then Lars was out, so I had free chance to overtake, but then I got completely shoved off by the Ferrari, so I lost 4 places. And then yeah, more chaos at the end with Midnight, but yeah, I like a crazy race, and yeah, nice podium.
Yeah, it was certainly entertaining to watch. Alex, is there any questions that you have for our first and third place drivers?
No, I think I'm sort of trying to recollect my thoughts after that finish. It was all going off. I'm not sure how much the drivers were actually aware of how carnage the end of that race was, but all I can say is congratulations. And constructors wise, for certainly 2 drivers in the party, both McLaren drivers, you're on for a double podium right now, obviously subject to stewards' inquiries, but some great points today to really thrust you up the constructor standings.
Yeah, 40 points is nice.
Yeah, that was a good race for the McLaren team, and I mean, after a crazy race, I think we can all agree, a very crazy race, it is the McLaren team that appeared to have thrived in those conditions throughout it all. Of course, Young Power in the mix as well. It doesn't appear that he is joining the party, so I think that is where we'll end it for this week's race. I mean, after that, I almost wish it hadn't ended. That was one hell of a finish there. But yeah, congratulations to all 3 of the podium drivers, and of course to the 2 that have joined us here in the party. And a massive congratulations to Harry, who avoided all that carnage and thrived in the in those final few laps and took himself the win. But yeah, I mean, to be honest, congratulations to everyone that finished that race. To be honest, that appeared to be a challenge in itself. Yeah, of course, a thrilling race to watch the commentator. I hope all the viewers enjoyed watching it as well. But that is it for this week. Next week we go to China which, if I remember correctly, last season, that was quite a good race for you, Harry.
Yeah. That was.
And also Kai, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I won.
Both us.
Yeah, I think if I remember correctly, Harry won it before Stewart's inquiries, and then you won it after Stewart's inquiries.
That was a controversial race, was that? Let's say at least.
I'm sure you two are both looking forward to that one then, as you've had success there in the past.
Yeah.
Rematch.
That is a very good way of putting it. I look forward to seeing that one then. Yeah, that is it for this week's entertaining race. I hope all of the viewers enjoyed it just as much as we did in the commentary box. Next week we go to China for round 9 of the season. But until then, thank you everyone for watching, and goodbye.